Time moves. So welcome to the Apache OpenWhisk Tech Interchange for this week or the first half in August. I see quite a few new people joining the call, so we can spend some time. People can introduce themselves and give, like brief summary why they're interested in OpenWhisk or something. So technically, we start this presentation or this session by people who are joining for the first time introducing themselves. So any new person joining the call today, I'm not joined earlier, probably they can introduce.
Hi, Chetan, Satvik here.
Matt, you can probably start the recording. I'm not sure if I start.
Recording is started.
Okay. Alex or anybody else want to introduce yourself?
I'm not sure Alex can hear. He says his audio isn't working.
Okay. Jesse or anybody else who is there here attending for the first time, can they introduce?
I can introduce myself. I'm Jesse McFadden. I'm an Apache member. I'm the VP of Apache Cordova, and I also work at Adobe. So we're very much interested in contributing to OpenWhisk as well. And I've reviewed some of the work that Alex has done for the Whisk debug, and it's a very good tool. So I'm anxious to see that contributed to Apache.
Nice. Who else we have for the first time? Moritz, Satvik, anybody else wants to introduce themselves?
Hi, Chetan. I'm Satvik. Currently, I am working as a research engineer with ESGS Software Solutions. We are a cloud-based hosting company from India, and we mostly work with open source technologies and try to explore them in terms of their use cases and stuff. So I have a personal interest in OpenWhisk, and that's basically compelled me to be connected to the community. So far, the experience has been great.
Nice. Welcome, Satvik. Welcome, Jesse. Anybody else want to introduce? Otherwise, we can go to the next part. Okay, fine. So, then there would be introduction to the WSK Debug tool by Alexander Klimstick. It looks like a very nice tool and should help the developer tooling we have for OpenWhisk. And then as a from Michael, there would be introduction to his book that he has written, Learning Apache OpenWhisk, which would be useful to the wider community, and he would talk about that. Looking at the past 2 weeks of work, I see quite a bit of work done around license-related fixes by David and Matt. Post-graduation, some parts were still to do in terms of license updates. So that work has been taken care of, I think, mostly. There are a couple of pull requests and review. There's one from Roderick around allowing parameters to be designated as anytime properties. There has been discussion on this on the DL sometime back, and I think the PR is ready for review, and probably Tyson needs to look into that. API gateway support in OpenWhisk. So this was discussed in the last tech call, that to enable wider use of the standalone mode, if we can have a API gateway support, that would be helpful. So the PR is now there, and quite a few people have tried, and it seems to work. Once reviewed, then we'll merge it. There's another PR around upgrading Gradle to 5.5 version. This was done like 2 days ago. This is required for us to move to support JDK 11. So it's part of a bigger ticket item. And it's now ready for review. There's been a PR in the Java runtime around updating the JDK base images. It's probably approved and yet to be merged. Then there's a PR from David Grove around propagating the extra environment variables to Kubernetes Container Factory, which is also, I think, in works or close to review. There's one pending discussion happening for publishing the OpenWhisk standalone jar. There's a PR around that which publishes it to GitHub release. David has some concern around adding commit rights to a Travis user or user used in Travis builds, which seems to be not that, seems to be not good. And currently we use that approach in WSK CLI, but this is where we need to decide. I think the ideal way would be to, once we have a proper release of the OpenWhisk core repo, and have the standalone as part of that. Hopefully in coming time, now the incubation is done. So we can wait for that, or if people are interested, we can publish an interim release. Anybody has thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my inclination would be to just try to push ahead with the release. I mean, the releases don't have to be perfect, so just get a release out, and then we can advertise it to users without any problems.
Okay, I think that would be a fair call. So I'm not sure we have done a core release in a long time, so not sure on what are the right steps. I think we would need to figure out how to change the nightly tags to the release ones, or if any artifacts to dependent on the core repo, then they need to be published first, and then we release the core repo. So.
Right. Yeah. I think we'll have to make a branch, and you're right. We haven't done a release in a while, so there's probably some. We'll find some things that have to get fixed in terms of licensing and code scan kind of stuff too.
Okay. Let me start a mail thread on that. I messaged you on that, and I forgot about that. So let me start a mail thread on what would be the approach for the core repo release, and then we can take it forward from that.
Yep, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else has anything to share across the past 15 days of work? Otherwise, we can move to the next topic.
I guess I just wanted to mention that we did rename 28 of the Git repos to remove the incubator name, and so most of that was pretty smooth because the Apache infra left in a redirect from the old names to the new. But help is always gratefully accepted to go through repos and update links. I know Michelle has done one or two. I've done some. Matt's done some. But there are a lot of repos, and some minor things probably got messed up in the process. Like Roderick had noticed we lost the keywords off the main repository, so we may have to do some follow-up infra tickets. So if things look wrong, just go ahead and fix them, or open tickets to fix them. So that's it. And it's just lots of little things to do, and anyone who wants to help out would be greatly appreciated.
Dave, if you have like a bullet item list of 5 or 6 on top of your head, you can drop on the mail, and people can pick from that one.
Yeah, sure. I can send
wherever you
out.
think some hands would be helpful, and if you have some pointed items like such and such and work, and just drop a mail, and then probably I and others from the community can pick it up.
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Okay. I think nothing else to be shared on the work done. So now we can move to the next part, which is introducing the WSK Debug tool. Alexander, Alex, you can now share your screen and demo the stuff.
Okay, thanks, Chetan. Yeah, I haven't introduced myself yet. So my name is Alexander Klimacek. I'm principal scientist here at Adobe, and been happily using OpenWhisk for about 2 years now. You might have seen me. I had some tiny contributions in some places. And okay, let me figure out how to share my screen. Here we go. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, and today I want to show you a little tool that we built and that we want to contribute to OpenWhisk. So it's called the WSK Debug, and it's a debugging tool, but also not just plain debugging. I think even more valuable is kind of the live development aspect. And I'll show you what that means. So background is that we, as you know, Adobe has IO runtime, which actually just GA'd, right, that runs OpenWhisk. So that's pretty cool. And I'm part of an Adobe team where we kind of spearheaded building a new service completely on OpenWhisk for about 2 years now, and we're launching soon as well. And yeah, so we love serverless. I think we're very happy with it, and especially OpenWhisk. But it's still very young, so we kind of feel like we're building always little tools along the way. And sorry about that, my daughter. So and we wanted a debugger, and we couldn't really find one. There was WSK DB, but that doesn't really work anymore, and there was no other solution. And so WSK Debug was born, and we wanted to make it open source right away. So and we did that, and we wanted to, like our team, our folks who are OpenWhisk committers kind of agreed that makes sense to try go and contribute to OpenWhisk. So that's why I'm here and presenting it to you. We have already open sourced it on our github.com, on our company open source place. So you can actually check it out, but I'd be happy if we can move it to OpenWhisk if you like the idea. So that's kind of a little bit the background. Now, what does the tool do? It is a basic, allows you to debug your actions using your standard language IDE debuggers, like Visual Studio Code, that's popular for the Node.js, but also whatever is the tools for the other languages that OpenWhisk supports. It supports the idea of hot code reload. So, and that's what I was referring to as the live development aspect. That whatever code you have in your, you're working on, that without having to redeploy, just saving it, it will automatically be used for the next activation. And that also supports browser live reload, that feature where in a browser it automatically reloads the page you're looking at. Maybe it's served from a web action, maybe it's served from some more complex process where OpenWhisk actions are behind it. But in any case, to give this for front-end development, especially kind of this quick development cycle. But you can also have custom triggers, like a curl command. And so right now it supports Node.js, all this for Node.js out of the box. For other languages, there's CLI-Ox where you can do it, and I actually can show you how I did that for Java as a demo. For the mounting and out of the box support for other languages, it's easy to add more. I just focused on Node.js because that's what we're using exclusively. I think, well, we can talk about it. I had a look at the kind of the recent action loop base image. It's used for a lot of the languages, where it's not as easy, I think, but I think with a little change, it could actually make it easy for all languages. And my idea was that this should be kind of a very simple tool that really just bridges the minimal gap between the different components, the IDE and the actions, and live reload. But not, it's not meant to be like a to have things like looking at your activation logs and things like that. I mean, you see the logs as part of the tool, but it really restricted to that, and then assuming the developer will mostly stay in their IDE and basically enabling the IDEs they have to work just as they would in a non-serverless environment. So with all that theory, let me switch to a demo. And so let's see. I go, okay, how can I go back? Here we go. So, well, let's start with the command line. I think it's easy to see. So I will example project here, one web action. You can that I use as a demo. It's written in Node.js, and so
is it possible to
say again?
If you can you make the font slightly bigger?
Oh, okay, yeah. Already made it bigger, but maybe
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so where's my cursor? Make sure I got the whole thing on the screen. So, and WSK Debug is a CLI tool written in Node.js. And you got a bunch of options. And basically, I can just start it in the command line just to see, like, it's very basic. There's no IDE plugins or whatever necessary. So here I have the action. I specify the name of the action that's already deployed, and then the source file. Then I enable the live reloading. So if I start that, starting up, setting up live reloading, and then it takes a second, and now it's ready. And if I go here in my size it a little bit so you can see that. So this is the web action in browser. So if I reload it, you'll see the activation came through. And actually, I think let's see the log here. No, we actually don't see special log. And so that's it on the console, but that's kind of boring. I just want to show you that it's very basic. Let's stop this, and if I go back, you see like the action still works, right? Seamlessly, whether I enable or disable the debugger. And so if I go to Visual Studio Code, I have the very same project open. And for some reason, my cursor always goes away. So, and here we have the little debug config that uses WSK Debug. So if I start that, we see the debug console, kind of a similar output as we had before. We see that the debugger has attached. I can hit a breakpoint here. And if I refresh, we'll see it's hitting the breakpoint. I can step through as I'm used to, and can continue. And then here at the bottom, we see kind of the whatever log output there was. And now, so let's make this a bit more interesting to show you the live reload part. So I'm modifying the code, and let's say I want to lock the name. I'll just do it here. And so if I hit save, you'll see it automatically reloaded the web action in the browser and triggered it. So it was pretty quick. And I can see no name being locked, so that's why it's empty down there. Let's continue. And so if I enter something here, just trigger it out, play, okay, we got our breakpoint hit again, let's play again, and then we see the log result down here. So really have a nice environment to quickly kind of iterate on my code, right? So let's say I want to change, actually put the name in the title of the browser window. I can do so, hit save, and I can see the result appear. So it's pretty nice and pretty quick. Yeah, that's basically the full cycle for Node.js. So let's stop this, and just to show you that it works in a different language, I also have prepared Java one. So here I have a little Java action in IntelliJ. That one, and so here, unfortunately, IntelliJ's option for configurations require me to start two things. For something pro, so I have to start WSK Debug. Separately, we see in the output that unfortunately for Java, as I mentioned, we don't have the hot code reloading or source mounting available yet. So just the debugging, but that's already helpful. And then in the second step, we have to connect the debugger. And so, but I've set it up in a similar way that I have my debugger and I have the log output here. And so if I trigger the action, which I wait, I have to do in the console. I have to switch to a different environment here. So I invoke my action. So what was the name again? So you see we have a breakpoint up there. So let me just invoke it. This one might be a bit slower. Yeah, and so we see breakpoint coming up here, and I can step through the code as I'm used to, inspect everything, and then continue. And we see kind of any output we would see down here. Yeah, so this one I forgot the result to make it blocking. Same thing, just run it through, go back here to get my result. Greeting, hello stranger. Yeah, so that's the demo part. Let me go back to my slides. So yeah, you might wonder how it works. And so here I have a little picture. So basically there's, before I dive into the picture, I think there's three different elements. So the debugging part basically, I'm assuming that, and it works for, I think for the most languages, you typically need to set a debug flag on the command to start the app, the JVM, the Node.js interpreter, and so on. I guess with the compiled languages, it gets a little more elaborate, but there's some kind of flag to enable the debugging. Maybe it needs a separate compilation deployment. Then in the second step, you open the debug port and you need to make that debug port available to your IDE or debugging tool. The mounting part is basically, you can mount sources if you run it locally, the container, and then you just need a little wrapper in the action runner that to make sure to reload the sources or the piece of code. For the third element is basically because I need to run it locally, I'm forwarding invocations. So what I'm doing is I'm replacing the actual action in the OpenWhisk system. It's a concurrent action and use a blocking queue, and the client is pulling for new activations. And as you see in the Node.js case, you see, I mean, it works surprisingly quick. Before I did that, I thought like, okay, well, there would be some delay, but it's actually very, very instant. So yeah, with these three concepts, let's go through the picture, right? So we do have, oops, how do I get my little cursor? It makes it better to show you. I think that's, no, that's not what I wanted. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically we have the IDE down here and we have a user. working on it, and so they got their source code. And so we're running WSK Debug. So all the WSK Debug components are here in blue. So this is a tool that kind of controls and orchestrates everything. And the key element is that it starts the a local container of the action with the same Docker image that's needed for the action runtime, and invokes or places the action there. But it does use a special wrapper action that takes care of things like reloading. And the other thing it does is on the OpenWhisk side, it replaces the original action temporarily doing the debugging with an agent. And when the debugging is finished, when you stop it, it will put it in the original action back in again. So what happens is basically you are editing a file, right, in your sources, and that triggers an event notification that the file was changed. WSK Debug registers that, and it uses that information for the live reload thing that talks through protocols to the browser. The browser reloads the page that makes a request to OpenWhisk. OpenWhisk invokes the action in case of a web action, and then our agent using concurrency. It's basically just one container, and so we can have multiple requests see each other. And so this one stores the activation in the queue, and then WSK Debug is constantly polling that very same instance, and we'll get a new activation. And when it has the activation locally, it just passes it on to its local container. And that local container, if it has the source mounting on, will have, because the new activation happens, it will make sure to reload the latest code. And when that has happened, it runs the code, and we have the code. So this whole thing runs in the debug mode. So the debug port is open, the IDE is connected, and so the IDE can actually see the debugging code, and you can step through it. And then, once it's done, you save again, the whole cycle repeats. And the result of the activation, once it has finished, WSK Debug will send it back to the agent, and the agent will return it as the invocation result. Of course, here you kind of have the 1 minute timeout limit, right, of a blocking activations or for a web action. So if you're stepping through the code for more than 1 minute, then that blocking result will kind of be lost. But I think it's not a problem because I mean, there's other cases where you might your action is asynchronous and invokes other things, so you don't care, and it's debugging scenarios, so it's probably not a big problem if every now and then it doesn't continue, but at least you are able to step through the code, and you can take as much time as you want, right? It's just that the result might get not used. So I don't know if there's any questions on this one. Otherwise, I have one more slide talking about logistics of possibly contributing that to OpenWhisk. Okay, let me quickly go through that. So we have already, as I mentioned, open sourced this on our GitHub organization. We licenses under the Apache 2.0 license already, so which should make it easy. We have kind of 3 different Adobe teams that supporting this tool. My team, we have the committers that work directly on Adobe AI runtime, and then we have another team that builds tooling for the Adobe around serverless, which is already using the debugger, and they can help with maintenance of this tool. I think so I think we have Jesse, I don't know if Moritz is on the call, and a third guy. So some of them already OpenWhisk committers. My list here is not complete. They actually changed a little bit overnight. From my side, I'm already an Apache committer, not an OpenWhisk committer. And yeah, so I have questions like, what if you, well, first, I mean, if you like the idea, otherwise we have naming. What's the contribution process? I'm basically technically just moving it around. And how does committership look like? Do you have the concept of, I think OpenWhisk already has lots of different areas and tools. It's committership for like one part, like one repository, one tool, a thing that you do. I don't know. So there was just some questions I had. But I'd love to hear feedback, and if you think that's a good idea to contribute to OpenWhisk, or what other thoughts you have.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer that we'd like to have it as part of the project. I think that, we don't really have a written formal process for submitting new large contributions. I think everything starts with the mailing list, that you suggest the contribution to the mailing list, and we'd have a discussion and probably end up having some mini vote there. We don't have the granularity of committership per repo. It just it's not supported by the underlying Apache mechanisms with GitHub. So, but absolutely,
Right.
we're looking for more committers, regardless, to support the project in different areas.
Right. Yeah, I mean, then there's an IP clearance process we can go through with Apache, but that's straightforward. It's a lazy consensus thing, assuming the code is, we'll have to scan it and things like that, but it should be straightforward.
I think this is great. Also replaces a couple of defunct repositories we have that were early prototypes of debugging capabilities that have fallen out of maintenance and have rotted.
Yeah, and I would personally say the timing is awesome, because with Java, I've been looking at the Java 11 stuff, and I want to see what more we can do to help the Java community. I'd like to see what we could possibly do with supporting different Java runtime flavors, and this would be a great boon to that community.
I really love it. I'd love to see if we could integrate it into the standard WSK CLI. I think it would be great for a lot of people, just creating different actions. I think this is perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, people ask about debugging all the time, and this is something we've been kind of lacking. So yeah, this looks incredible. It's very exciting. Great work on this.
Yeah, I was while I was researching the Java case just yesterday, right, for this demo, I came across the action loop, which I didn't see before, and I think that's one area where it's actually would be, well, one place, since a lot of the language runtime seems to move to the action loop. I think it could be one place where this general debugging logic, as WSK Debug deploys it, could be implemented by having like debug flag passed to it, and then it would handle. I think it already has all the means to, if I understand correctly, to potentially recompile and invoke. The only thing is that the different language runtimes need to kind of respect the debugging flag, that whatever it will be. But I think already there's like an instructions. Okay, if you build the language runtime using action loop, you got to do this, this, and that. And so you could add this one debugging thing, and then implement it for many languages, or in a fairly easy way. So that's one thing I think, and it's actually definitely great if we have this in OpenWhisk. Then you can work on this on such a cross project or cross.
Actually, since I am the author of Action Loop, some times ago I talked about exactly this, to create a standalone version of Action Loop that will let you to run and deploy automatically and redeploy all the time the action while you write. And in this way, you can hook a debugger on it. And so this is not new. If you look at the mailing list, somewhere I talked about a proposal that I called mini-whisk some times ago. But anyway, definitely this is something that can investigate how this can be done. Okay.
Alexander, I was just having a look through the code repo, and the question I was going to ask was, if you're using OpenWhisk and it doesn't have concurrency, is there a way to make this work? And I did see in your repo you've got an agent no concurrency file,
Yes.
so I'm hoping that's the case.
Yes. Well, we actually have an older version of OpenWhisk that we run internally at Adobe, and that you need to use for some of access our internal services. So I was using that, and I wanted to debug something there, and that's where I came across, oh, dang, I also need to support this, and this doesn't have the concurrency yet because it's an older one. So I kind of hacked together another one. That one is a little bit slower, and that you saw that in the Java demo. I had to use the Java run this, the Java demo there, and it was a little bit slower because it needs to create other activations. It's kind of a workaround. It kind of works, but it's slower, and there's yeah. I don't know how. I mean, for us in runtime, we always have the concurrency. I don't know how that distributes nowadays.
Yeah, the reason I ask obviously is IBM Cloud Functions doesn't support concurrency at the moment. So people would be very excited about this tool, and I know our users. But yeah, so as long as there'd just be, I'd have to have a play with it. It's fine to be slower, like I understand that. As long as it works, then I could happily kind of promote this to people when they're asking about debugging on IBM Cloud Functions.
So were you guys part of the pull request in the Java thing, talking about Vertex and its ability to support concurrency? Was that anybody from your team, Alex? Because that was an interesting thread I saw in the PR. Is instead of using the Sun HTTP server, we could use the Vertex server, which supports concurrency for Java. So, I'm trying to figure out what we pursue in the Java space.
Yeah. Was it a question to me? Because I'm not.
Yeah, it was a question to you, Alex, saying, did you guys have anything to do with that? I saw some Java 11 PRs and another PR for Vertex server to replace the Sun HTTP server to support concurrency as one of the rationales.
No, I don't know about that. I just use Java. I mean, I just set up Java here for the demo to show that we're not just able to support Node.js, but other at least in theory, or
cool.
At least basically. I think from the point of view of the WSK Debug tool, the concurrency part doesn't play a role. But the agent, when it replaces the action with the agent, that's always going to be a Node.js agent that needs concurrency to be fast or not concurrency to, and it's a little bit slower. Because if it replaces the action, I mean, that's a cool thing, right? About almost we can replace the action, and it can be a completely different kind or Docker image, and so we don't depend on, for that part, on support in other languages.
Cool.
I mean, what happens? I haven't played around if you want to debug a scenario where you do have a concurrent action, your action is concurrent, and you want to debug the concurrency situation. I'm not sure if the debugger will be set up for this yet, because I don't think the polling right now allows concurrent actions to be sent to the local container. So that's, but I'm not sure if that will be a common need. More of an edge case, I guess.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else has any comment here? Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I think the next step for me would be just to kind of put all this together in a post on the mailing list and then go from there.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
great.
let's take it up on the mailing list, and then what are the Apache processes? Take it up.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks, Alex. This would be very useful for people to day-to-day development. Okay. So, Michael, you're next with your book and with a good cover. Let's talk about that.
Show me. Show me in the video. I don't see myself. Okay. Hello.
Yep.
Can you see me? Because I don't see my face in the screen.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can
we see
see
your
your
face.
I want to show the book. So if you don't give me the am I? Are you seeing me or because I don't? Okay, okay. I don't see myself. I don't know. But anyway, that's the book.
Wait.
As you can see, has been in the work for a lot of time, 1 year. But now, just of course, I cannot show you all the page of the book. So I did a presentation to show what is in it. And so now I am sharing the screen. Let me see. Oops. 1 second. I have to share the screen first. 1 second. So share. Oh, share. Are you seeing my screen or no? Share. Okay, okay. This is the desktop one. Okay, that's fine. Share. Okay, and now you should see the presentation that is here. Okay, do you see the presentation now? Oh. Are you seeing the presentation?
Was there? Yep. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Now, because last time I were seeing my face and not the presentation, so just to be sure. Okay. So to make the presentation not very boring, I just show the pictures of the book mostly. So the book is has 12 chapters, and it's split into parts. The part one covers the basics, that is focused on JavaScript. I talk about JavaScript architecture. I cover the design pattern testing, and then there is another part that is more advanced, and it talks about Python and Go, Couchbase, Kafka, and Kubernetes deployment. So this is the highlight of chapter one, where I mostly talk about the architecture. So I cover the OpenWhisk architecture, the various components, and I go in details of how you build the actions or the constraints, the serverless execution model. I go in in pretty much details how it works with this diagram that will highlight all the flow of processing an action. And finally, I completed the chapter discussing also a comparison with Java Enterprise Edition, because I believe that is OpenWhisk is the new application server and is going to replace in a multi-language environment the old Java Enterprise architecture. There are many things that are similar, so I completed the chapter with this discussion. Okay, the chapter 2 is about a quick and direct jump start. So there is a step-by-step example to build a simple web contact form application. So with all the details required to set up the tool in the IBM cloud, and then create a cloud on database and send us a mail through Mailgun. So it's a very hands-on example to have the reader immediately hands-on on OpenWhisk. Then in chapter 3, I go into the details. So here there is a chapter about how to use the whisk command and all the various concepts like sequence, triggers, rules, actions. And then also I talk about the JavaScript API to interact in a programmatic way, do basically the same thing you do with the whisk tool in an action. Chapter 4 start to make a lot of examples all in JavaScript, where I implemented a lot of design patterns. I try to show how to use the classical gang of four design patterns in JavaScript in a serverless environment. So it's basically a sort of how to implement many design patterns in OpenWhisk. Actually, like a sequence is a chain responsibility. The singleton is a trigger and stuff like this. Actually, the chapter initially was just one chapter, but was huge. So it's actually split into chapters. So chapter 5 is introduces more design patterns, but all the design patterns actually makes a lot of examples how to do interesting things. For example, the observer pattern implements how to implement a feed. So an example how to you do a feed in OpenWhisk. Also, I cover connected to external services to adapter bridges. And also, the only not Gang of 4 pattern included was the MVC, but I felt that was important to complete the chapter with this example. Okay, the last chapter is, the same subject we talked before, testing. So there is a complete chapter showing how to do testing with unit testing using just snapshot testing, how to recreate locally a complete testing environment that simulate what happens in OpenWhisk. And also I included a mocking library that simulate what happens, so you can use a mocking library to have a sequence and also action invocation directly in your local environment before you deploy as an action. So I try to cover pretty much in depth how to test actions using the classical unit testing. That's very complementary to what WSK Debug does. Okay, this completes part 1. So the half chapter is basically dedicated to basics with JavaScript. In part 2, I cover Python. So there is a chapter that do all the same thing I talked before, of course, more shortly, about Python. So I'll use the Python runtime, I use a virtual environment, I'll use the OpenWhisk API in Python. Also, again, I repeat with example to do testing and mocking in Python. Then there is a chapter on CouchDB, and I show all the things. Basically, is covering all the most important concepts of CouchDB, because I believe that many people want to use this when you use OpenWhisk. Also because it's normally available within OpenWhisk, not public exposed, but anyway, it's there. So there is CouchDB, the REST API, queries, design document, views validation, the cloud on package to access it. Chapter 9 does an example in Python using CouchDB of a CRUD application, the classical form where you put records, the classical address book, just to be clear. Classical address book that actually is split into parts. One more basic, where you do the basics of reading, saving, editing records, and then a more advanced where I cover blob upload, pagination, validation, and so on. So this one is, I think, an example that everyone wants to use when they write their application. And then finally, chapter 10, of course, is about Go, how to write actions in Go. So there is here some action in Go, how to use all the typical things that happens in Go, including how to precompile action to have a fast startup. Also testing in Go, and I'll use OpenWhisk in Go. And there's also an example how to embed resources in Go, so you can have a single Go action with all the resources that you want, so you can have a sort of web servers embedded in an action. Chapter 11 covers Kafka. So this is starts with a general introduction to Kafka, how to provision a Kafka instance in the IBM cloud, and then there is an example. This one is written in Go of a web chat where you use Kafka as the backend, and you can implement an actual chat where multiple people can chat together, all implemented in OpenWhisk action using polling, because you have to poll to retrieve the next message, and the backend is a Kafka instance that you connect directly. Also, I addressed the issues that there are that you have to limit concurrency, where to use Kafka, that just been discussed in the mailing list some time ago, if someone remember. And the last chapter is about Kubernetes. So it basically is a guide how to install OpenWhisk in Kubernetes in multiple environments. So I cover first how to install in Docker Desktop, then I cover how to install in AWS, then I cover how to install in a local server with libvirt. So, and in the end, after you build your Kubernetes cluster, you deploy it using Helm, where I provide all the structure. So basically, a sort of guide how to install Kubernetes everywhere. So that should complete gracefully the book and give a complete overview to put OpenWhisk up and running in every environment. And well, there's also some acknowledgement. There's a few people here has been mentioned in the book, so if you check there, you can see that is Roderick, there's Carlos, there is also Dave, Justin, James, Marcus, Matt, Preeti, they are mentioned. So many of them, many of you guys are there. Your name is there. Last thing I want to say, if you want the book, as an author, I can have a 50% discount. And the editor is available to ship the book free in the United States to everyone. So if you want it, if you want a copy of the book, a 50% discount, contact me and we can solve the issue in some way. Okay, that's all. And
congratulations, Nikove. And I was going to ask, do you have any blogs or press announcements we can put out on our OpenWhisk social channels?
Okay, that would be very, very, very. It would be an honor. Okay, that's all.
If you just send me something to reference, then I can put it out on the social channels.
Okay, good, very good. Okay, let's get in touch later so we can do the things. Okay, I finished.
Okay, thanks, Michael. This book would be very useful, and I'm already looking for it in the Safari online. We have to go through that. Now, any other topic to be discussed? Otherwise, we can discuss who would be doing the next call, which is on 21st of August. Any volunteer for that?
Chetan, Neeraj here. You can put up my name.
Thanks, Neeraj.
That would be the first time, but I will try. Yeah.
It's always the first time, and Matt is very helpful in that. So, yeah, I would schedule you for the next call for 21st then. And if no other topic to discuss, we can close the call.
Sure. Thank you.
Great call. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.